I'm Kevin Wagner with WisLUG and FoxLUG, and this is a castle collaborative that we put together with about 15 or 16 members of WisLUG. So we wanted to do kind of an homage to the Black Falcons, and so the castle has the dark blue and the yellow versus the blue and yellow from the Black Falcons fortress, and the keep itself has kind of the same general structure with the towers in the front and then the keep coming up in the back. But what we did as a group is we came up with designs for the towers, the walls, the houses, and then we used that same design across the group so we could have things uniform and match up. And we laid out the entire build, and each person had a certain number of base plates, and so they could match in with that. And so we also choose dark bluish gray. We figured it was a better accent color with the Black Falcons themselves. So right now you're kind of looking at the dock section. So this is a port town that would be right on the water. So there'd be a lot of activity. We have 3 different members that built dock sections up in the front. And so there's a lot of activity going on up in front. We have people arriving in ships and a lot of activity going along, some CD activities, kind of quite a bit going on up front. And then on the landscaping side of things, we put together 3 different tree designs. So we have a fir tree and we have a couple of deciduous trees so we can get some consistency. And then our members also came up with a couple of different designs, like you'll see some of the trees of the pink flowers and some of the other techniques. And one of the members spelled out WisLUG on the front walls of the build itself. So we really wanted to get the look of the landscaping to be consistent, even though we have 6 different members that built on the right side of this build here. We were able to get the ingots to use for the roadway, so we thought that would make it look very nice. We've been looking at those ingots for a little while. And then as you look through the city, what we tried to do is, looking down each row of houses, we tried to get activity so you could see stuff going on throughout the build. So we have a number of merchants taking things to and from. We have a herd of sheep coming in. We have a pig pen in the back. We have cows, a herd of cattle. And then up in the front square, we have a market going on. So there are a lot of vendors selling fruits and vegetables, bakery, meat. And so the nice thing about this build is that the house technique is the same, but we use 4 different colors for the coloring on the houses, and we use 2 different roof techniques with different color for the shield tiles and for the cheese slopes. And so even though we have a very similar architecture for each one, it ends up looking very different across the build. We also put together a couple of designs for the balcony and the stairs, and people use different configurations of that to make each build look a little bit different. We had a couple members that built a little bigger houses or modified, and then one of our members built the church as an add-on, and that really helped kind of add some variety to it as a whole. For the walls of the castle, we wanted to use kind of the accent colors all the way along, so with the dark blue and the yellow, it really made it stand out a bit more. And then we also had greebling in, but we used sand blue as an accent color, and then we also had some dark bluish gray tiles, 1x1 tiles, 1x2 tiles, ingots, and then our members were able to go through and kind of randomize that themselves, and it turned out looking really nice and very cohesive as a whole. What else?
You got the nice waterfall section over here.
Yes, yep. So a couple of our members built the waterfall, the water wheel, and there's actually a cavern behind it. But there's a lot of activity going on over here. We have a couple of fishermen and some people riding over the falls. We have a little adventuring party, which represents some of the a group from a couple of our members that they've done in their own campaign. And so a lot of our builders brought in a lot of elements. So seeing the water here, we had a couple builders that really added a lot of variety and technique, because on the layout, this was just a large open area, and they really added a lot of variety to it. Along the walls, you can see there's a lot of activity going on. So this is really a very collaborative effort between all of our different members and bringing in their own elements. So with the inner keep, this was actually 5 different people that combined for this. So I built the keep itself, but then the towers, the walls, the activity going on inside is all is from a number of different people. And again, it ended up coming together very well. and very cohesive.
We have John come back and show the cavern there. Yes, that's quite the treasure hoard in there.
Yes, so this dragon was built by a couple of members, and they just finished it, I think, yesterday or the day before, and it's been a big draw for a lot of people coming to spot the dragon and look at the large hoard of treasure it has. So, and the adventurers are on their way to try to slay the dragon itself.
Now, you mentioned earlier the different tree techniques. Let's dive into that a little more if we can and talk about some of the designs that you used there.
So this is something where initially we kind of got the parts, but then put it together. This has kind of 4 or 5 critical parts. So essentially there's a stud with a hinge. We've got the bar holder and the bar clip, and then it holds onto the leaf itself. So I built a lot of different tree techniques, and one of the issues is typically whenever I put them together, the leaves fall off. And so in this case, it's anchored very well, and we just use the same pattern coming up. And so if you see this tree, what we can do with this pattern is we can swivel back and forth, we can lift up and down, so we're able to bring the branches up as they come up the tree and make it look quite a bit more organic. And then we have a number of different varieties or variations on that technique. And so with the fir tree itself, this is somewhat similar, but instead we're using the clips and then the 1x2 with clip on here. And so, and again, it gets slightly larger as it goes out, but we're able to use those palm leaves to make a very nice fir tree. And then we had a couple other elements, like we were using elephant trunks with the sword leaves down here. And then we tried to use a lot of foliage to really give a better look to the ground itself. So we're trying to show as few studs as possible and really make a very nice verdant green build.
Yeah. So you mentioned there were quite a few builders involved with this here. What was the collaboration process like in terms of making sure that everybody's build would kind of like line up and it would all fit together?
So I actually laid everything out and marked off who had each section. We kind of determined ahead of time what the castle outline was going to be, who was building towers where, and then put together what the heights would be at each different section, the match points. And the first time we put this together, it actually came together almost exactly. We had, I think, 3 little minor issues, but we were very good to go. We did a lot of collaboration on Slack, so when we had people that were matching in, they'd either be posting pictures of what they were doing, or we'd be contacting over email. One of the biggest things that really helped is I put together instructions for each of the different modules. So there's instructions for the tower, for the wall, for the house, for the staircases and the balconies, for the docks, and then we had a standard base section for the water, a base section for the city itself, a base section for the landscaping, and so it really, everyone was kind of building on the same level and making from the get-go, and so everything came together very well.
And do you know the dimensions of the whole layout here?
We are, I believe it's 12 base plates by 8 base plates. So roughly 10 feet by 8 feet, I think. So, no, sorry, 12 and a half feet by 8 feet approximately.
I mean, tremendous layout here. This is just spectacular. I especially love the castle wall design. It feels very beefy and very intimidating as you're looking around here.
And we really intentionally wanted it to be a thicker section, so we have the section built on both sides. We have a 4 stud wide parapet, so it would really give room to pass back and forth. And the towers itself were significantly higher than the minifigure height. And then when I was building the keep, I had to build everything higher, so it made it much bigger than I intended to in the first place. But the elevations worked out pretty well.
And you mentioned the docks earlier, but what are some of the other details out front here that you can point out? Because there's a lot of action happening. I love all the food that's being brought in.
Yep. So so you've got some people offloading fish here from the docks. You've got a little bit of a market going on here, where a number of people are selling different things. You've got some guards out in front here. There's a little market going on here, selling some crabs and seafood. You have some soldiers that are kind of going off on patrol. You can see there's a little hidden cavern underneath here, so these guys might be in a little jeopardy right now. And then through here you have a little, someone's out on their own, that's a little camp, they're drying some fish. And as you come across here, you have a little hermit that's kind of living out on his own outside the castle walls in a little shack. We've got a little Bo Peep and her sheep in here as well. We've got some forestmen that are out on their way to hunt. And then we've got some little some ducklings that are trying their wings here before they get out into the main lake here. We've got a little goblin that's trying to coerce the alligator so he can make some shoes out of him. So it's a little nefarious there. We have a few forestmen that are going off on the hunt, hoping to capture or to slay the deer. We have a number of forestmen that are scouting the walls for potentially an attack on the castle itself. We have a hopeful princess that is hoping she can find her Prince Charming with the frogs here. Let's see.
So many fun details throughout the whole layout here, and even inside you mentioned all the markets and everything.
Yeah, and that's something where we wanted to make sure there was a lot of activity. This would be a bustling city. There's all sorts of things going on. I mean, you've got knights training inside the castle itself. We've got a number of wizards that are kind of stationed throughout. That are this tower in particular has a bit more magical power to it. So there are a number of wizards in and about that one of our members was putting in. Back down the side of the wall here, you can see a lot of activity. Back kind of more of a black market along the walls there. So it was really nice how each member put in their own elements, their own design, their own storyline. So it was a number of things made for a very organic and bustling city overall.
Well, fantastic layout here. Thanks to you and everyone else who put in the work here to bring this out to the show. It's certainly a fantastic layout. I love seeing the Black Falcons represented like this in a large layout. Thank you so much for taking us through all the details and giving us some insight into the layout.
Thank you very much.